At 4 a.m., as Boston lay quiet under the night sky, a shadowy force swept in without a sound, changing everything instantly. ICE teams slipped through the darkness with no lights or sirens, acting like soldiers on a secret mission, and they hit university dorms hard. In places like Boston University and East Boston neighborhoods, doors flew open. Young people got pulled from their beds in handcuffs, and soon almost 1,500 folks disappeared into custody over just 1 month. Authorities labeled it Operation Patriot. Yet, for those left behind on campus, it seemed more like an invasion that no one saw coming. What drove this dawn strike and who truly ended up in the vans now hangs over the city, sparking fear and questions about what might strike next. Let's explore with Navy Secrets. In the quiet hours before dawn in May 2025, Boston became the stage for a stunning immigration crackdown that left communities reeling. ICE launched a sweeping operation known as Operation Patriot, targeting university dormitories and residential areas across the city, detaining nearly 1,500 people in just 1 month. This bold move hit places like Boston University, MIT, and neighborhoods like Chelsea and South Bay, catching residents off guard with its speed and scale. The raids, executed with military-like precision, sparked heated debates about security, rights, and the role of universities in America's immigration battles. Yet, the full scope of this operation raises questions about its actual targets and lasting impact, setting the stage for a deeper look into how it unfolded. Operation Patriot began in the darkness with ICE agents moving swiftly through Boston streets to surround key locations. At Boston University, teams entered dormitories at 4 a.m., securing hallways and stairwells before students could react. In Chelsea, a working-class neighborhood, agents targeted apartment complexes housing many international residents. Unlike typical immigration checks, these raids were highly coordinated using detailed plans to avoid detection. For example, in a single week in March 2025, ICE detained 370 people across these sites, a number that grew to 1,500 by June, according to official ICE reports. This rapid pace showed a clear intent to overwhelm and outmaneuver any resistance. The operation's focus was not random as it zeroed in on areas with large international student and immigrant populations. At MIT, agents swept through graduate housing, targeting those in high-demand STEM fields. In South Bay, residential blocks saw similar action with entire families sometimes detained. The scale was staggering as ICE moved beyond traditional targets like undocumented workers to include students with valid visas. A video from a local news outlet captured agents escorting residents from a Newton apartment complex, their hands bound as neighbors watched in shock. This broad approach signaled a shift in enforcement strategy, prioritizing speed and volume over precision. Operation Patriot's reliance on secrecy and surprise made it stand out, leaving little room for response. Agents arrived without flashing lights, using night vision tools to navigate quietly, as reported by WBUR. This ensured that detentions were already underway when communities realized what was happening. For instance, at TUS University, a graduate student named Aisha Khan was pulled from her dorm during a study session, unaware of the operation until agents were at her door. Her case, reported by the Boston Globe, highlighted how quickly lives were upended with no chance to contact family or legal help. Of the 1,500 detained, over half were caught in these pre-dawn sweeps, a tactic designed to prevent escapes or protests. The operation's reach extended beyond university campuses, hitting residential areas with equal force. In East Boston, a hub for immigrant families, ICE targeted multi-unit buildings, detaining both documented and undocumented residents. A CBS News report noted that these raids included individuals and entire households, disrupting community networks. For example, a family of 4 in Chelsea was detained despite having no criminal history. Local advocates later highlighted their case. The sheer number of detentions, 1,500 in a single month, underscored ICE's aggressive push, surpassing typical enforcement actions in the region. This massive operation drew from a playbook of calculated efficiency, reflecting ICE's broader goals under the Trump administration. The agency claimed Operation Patriot was data-driven, targeting specific individuals based on intelligence gathered over months. However, including students and families with clean records raised doubts about the operation's focus. A leaked memo cited in the original transcript suggested using university records to pinpoint targets, a move that sparked outrage among educators. According to DHS data, by June 2025, the operation had detained people from over 20 countries with a notable focus on those from Asia and Latin America. This wide net fueled debates about whether the raids were truly about security or something else entirely. The human cost of these raids was immediate and visible as communities grappled with the sudden loss of neighbors and classmates. At Boston University, lecture halls sat half-empty as students feared attending classes. A trend echoed at MIT and other schools. Local reports noted a 10% drop in campus attendance in the weeks following the raids as fear spread among international students. One student quoted in a WBUR interview described hiding in their dorm for days, unsure if they would be next. These stories painted a picture of a city on edge where trust in institutions like universities began to erode under the weight of federal enforcement. Operation Patriot's scale and execution were meant to send a message but also raised questions about fairness and intent. While ICE touted the operation as a win for public safety, the broad sweep of detentions suggested a more complex agenda. The targeting of university students, many in critical STEM fields, hinted at a strategy tied to national security concerns, though details remained scarce. As Boston reels from the shock, the methods behind these raids, swift, silent, and sweeping, demand a closer look at how they were carried out and what they mean for the future. The ICE raids in Boston, known as Operation Patriot, ignited a firestorm of conflicting reactions across the city and beyond. Supporters hailed the operation as a vital step to enforce immigration laws, while critics condemned it as an extreme overreach that trampled academic freedom and sparked widespread protests. This clash of views split communities, fueled by the operation's massive scale of nearly 1,500 detentions in just 1 month. The debate revealed deep divides over security, rights, and the role of universities, turning Boston into a flashpoint for national immigration battles. As tensions rose, the city's response set the stage for a broader reckoning with actions. On one side, those backing the raids saw them as a necessary crackdown on long-ignored immigration violations. Law enforcement leaders argued that the operation restored order by targeting individuals who posed risks to public safety. At a press conference in early June 2025, U.S. Attorney Leah Foley praised ICE for its bold move, stating that the raids were critical to upholding the rule of law. She pointed to the data, which showed that 790 of the 1,500 detained had prior criminal convictions, including ties to violent gangs and drug networks in areas like Chelsea. For supporters, this justified the operation's intensity, proving that it was tackling real threats within communities. Local police officials echoed this sentiment, emphasizing the need for decisive action. They highlighted cases where ICE detained members of organized crime groups operating in Boston suburbs, such as a fentanyl trafficking ring uncovered in South Boston. Posts on social media amplified this view, with users praising the operation for cleaning up neighborhoods they felt had been overlooked. The sentiment was clear. After years of perceived leniency, the raids were a strong signal that immigration laws would no longer be ignored, especially in a city known for its sanctuary policies. However, the other side of the debate painted a starkly different picture. Viewing the raids as a brutal assault on civil liberties, immigrant advocates, professors, and students labeled the operation as a politically driven campaign to silence dissent and intimidate vulnerable groups. Senator Elizabeth Warren, speaking at a rally, warned that ICE's actions threaten the core principles of free expression, particularly on university campuses. She argued that targeting students, many of whom held valid visas, was not about safety, but about sending a chilling message to academic communities.
Protests erupted almost immediately after the raids began, with hundreds taking to the streets. On June 7th, a crowd of 500 gathered outside Boston State House, waving signs demanding justice and transparency. Students from MIT and Boston University joined immigrant families, their voices amplified by megaphones as they shared stories of friends detained without warning. Videos from Waltham showing agents leading handcuffed students from dorms spread rapidly online, racking up thousands of views and fueling outrage. These images became a rallying cry, pushing protests to other cities like Cambridge and Worcester. The academic community felt particularly betrayed as universities had long been considered safe havens for free thought. Faculty members from Tufts and Emerson College issued statements condemning the raids, arguing that they undermined the pursuit of knowledge by creating fear among international students. A petition started by a Boston University student group gathered 15,000 signatures in just 3 days, calling for an end to what they described as militarized enforcement on campuses. The petition highlighted cases like that of a Brazilian chemistry student detained during a lab session despite having no criminal record. This wave of dissent was emotional and organized, with legal groups stepping in to challenge methods. The ACLU of Massachusetts announced plans to file lawsuits, claiming the raids violated due process rights. Their legal team pointed to instances where detainees were held without access to lawyers, a practice they argued was unconstitutional. Immigration attorneys also noted that many of those detained were graduate students in fields like engineering, raising concerns that the operation targeted talent critical to America's innovation economy. Social media became a battleground for these opposing views, with hashtags trending as users debated the raid's merits. One post viewed over 50,000 times showed a student being escorted from a dormitory, captioned with a plea for compassion. In contrast, other posts celebrated ICE's efficiency, arguing that the agency protected communities from potential threats. This digital divide mirrored the real-world tension as Boston's streets buzzed with rallies and counter-rallies, each side digging in deeper. The protests also highlighted a broader fear that the raids were reshaping the social fabric of academic institutions. Students began avoiding classes, with some schools reporting a 12% drop in attendance as fears spread. Community centers in East Boston saw fewer visitors as families worried about being targeted during routine activities.